Hello everyone, and I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing latest and everything Telltale Games, Transformers, and more. So here we are again, back with another review for Transformers Cyberverse. This time we're going to be reviewing Season 2, Episode 4.
Bring me the spark of Optimus Prime!
Yeah, like what he said, that was just what I was going to say. So, yeah, anyway, this episode, honestly, I really enjoyed this episode, as compared to the last episode we saw with episode 3, The Visitor. I feel like this is what The Visitor should have been, because this time it's really cool as we get to see basically, if episode 3 was kind of like a slice of life episode for the Autobots, this is essentially that for the Decepticons, while also introducing us to 3 new characters who I think are going to be playing a major role in Season 2 of Cyberverse. And it really shows, it's really cool to see, and almost also funny to see, not only do we get to see like what common life is for the Decepticons, but also advances the plot, like the main plot of this season in a good way, in my opinion. So we're gonna go ahead and everything this episode did right and what it did wrong. So this episode starts, of all things, with a live stream that Megatron is giving to the people of Earth, basically trying to show them that basically the Autobots killed Starscream, that he's trying to frame Starscream's supposed death, or actual death, if I'm not exactly too sure on that, as basically being killed by Optimus and the other Autobots. And it's honestly so weird to see that Megatron's trying to gain sympathy from the humans just by basically framing Starscream's death as an Autobot murder. And I love the comments that are being like posted by other Decepticons, or I guess humans, in the live chat on the right side. You see stuff like "see you on the other side," "who's Starscream," or stuff like that. And it's honestly like, it makes you think of like, this is like how actual people like talk in live streams. And as someone who's like seen a few live streams like on Instagram and stuff like that, it totally fits. So shout out to whoever was in charge of writing the dialogue for the text chat and on the live stream. That, you nailed it spot on. But it's just hilarious just watching Megatron throw on this act for all the people of Earth, and just claiming that Starscream like was his most trusted friend, and that's such a travesty that he died. And they put on this grand like memorial / funeral for him, and even you can see all the Decepticons are just not sure like how to go along with it. Even Shadow Striker just is cringing so hard at this, despite the fact that Megatron's put on this grand spectacle for Starscream. And it's just really funny because he talks about, oh yeah, how he was his best friend this, and it was such a travesty to lose him. Because yeah, Megatron, I'm really sure with the way you treated him back in episode 2, he was your best friend.
Starscream was the most courageous, the most loyal, the most capable bot I have ever known. Starscream was my closest friend. I will not soon forget him.
Yeah, totally your best friend, bud, sure. But anyway, after this little charade ends and Megatron finishes recording his video, we cut to the bridge of the Nemesis, where Megatron has gathered pretty much all the main Decepticons. We see Soundwave, Shockwave, Shadow Striker, Slipstream, as well as 2 new Decepticons named Lockdown and Clobber. Now, for any of you Transformers fans, you'll probably recognize Lockdown from many other things, most notably from Transformers Animated and from the Age of Extinction Bayverse movie. Lockdown's design in Cyberverse seems to be heavily inspired by his appearance in Transformers Animated, especially with his black and green color scheme and his hook arm. Now, again, I know Lockdown originates from Transformers Animated, but I have yet to see like Lockdown. I haven't watched so far into Transformers Animated to see Lockdown actually make a general appearance, so I don't know how exactly he's supposed to act. But compared to how Lockdown is acted in Age of Extinction, and even he did appear for a good part of the original IDW comics, it just seems like kind of a departure from other Lockdowns before him, that I'm not sure I 100% agree with Lockdown's characterization in Cyberverse. But hey, if he's just a minor character, it's no big deal. I forgot to mention this, we also get to see Bludgeon there as well, and Bludgeon is, again, I don't know exactly like where Bludgeon originated from, but my knowledge of Bludgeon comes from the IDW comics, where he played a main role throughout that comics, especially towards the end in the later Optimus Prime and Unicron comics. But Bludgeon is essentially, for all you don't know, basically the sort of the Decepticon equivalent of Drift, in that he's basically the token samurai swordsman fighter for the Decepticons. And while we don't see him a lot this episode, it does make me curious as to what role he's going to play later on this season. But anyway, Megatron's gathered him, Lockdown, Clobber, who I gotta say, also, I forgot about introducing Clobber here too. When I first saw her, I thought she was Lugnut from Transformers Animated, and I make a gender bent version of Lugnut because her design is very similar to that of Lugnut from Transformers Animated. But no, we're confirmed that by I think Lockdown names her later on this episode that she is a brand new character named Clobber, who just happens to have a very strong resemblance to Lugnut from Transformers Animated. But she kind of fits the same role as Lugnut did in anime, where she's essentially like the dumb muscle of the Decepticons, and also kind of similar even to Breakdown in Transformers Prime the more you think about it. But anyway, Megatron's got her, Lockdown, Bludgeon, Shadow Striker, Slipstream, Shockwave, and Soundwave all together on the bridge, basically saying that now that they've tried to persuade the humans to get on their side by making Starscream essentially a martyr for the Decepticons. He goes to tell them the next step of his plan, which is that basically have all the Decepticons compete to
bring me the spark of Optimus Prime!
Yeah, dude, you already said that at the beginning of this video. Okay, but anyway, Megatron, after Megatron basically challenges all of the Decepticons to go ahead and try and kill Optimus for him, he promises whoever manages to kill Optimus will end up taking Starscream's place as Megatron's second in command. So everyone's it's sort of cool and funny also how we get to see basically all the Decepticons compete against one another to figure out their own plans for taking down Optimus. And it also ends with as everyone runs out, Slipstream's the last one to run out, but Megatron stops her, saying that she, as the new head of the Seekers after Starscream, she needs to focus on making sure all Thundercracker and the rest of the Seekers are in line, so she goes off to do that for the most part this episode. After that, we cut back to Shockwave and Soundwave, who really start to form like this really interesting rivalry, I guess, that I wouldn't have expected between the two of them. Now, in past Transformers universes like the IDW comics, IDW 2, even Prime to a degree, Shockwave and Soundwave always had a sort of like rivalry or disdain for one another, but it's never been to the point of like outright hatred like we're seeing right now in Cyberverse. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it. It's also funny to see like how much Soundwave and Shockwave are bickering between each other, and that's only strengthened by Mark Swinton and Ryan Andy's performances as the two, especially on Ryan Andy's parts, how he can play such a charming, sweet character as Grimlock, but then also go to a really kind of a bastard like Shockwave is. And it's really cool to see that Ryan Andy's is able to switch between Shockwave and Grimlock so effortlessly. But after Soundwave and Shockwave throw insults at one another for a while, they each come up with their own plan to try and sabotage the other's efforts to take down Optimus. First off, Soundwave tasks Clobber with having a bunch of explosives to take the Shockwave's lab to blow it up, while Shockwave gives Lockdown some sort of sabotaging tool or something like that to go ahead and damage Soundwave's ship. And it's really funny because as they are both talking, as eventually Clobber and Lockdown end up running into each other, and they basically just try to explain what they're going to be doing, and then while they feel uneasy about it, Shadow Striker runs into them both and instead tries to have both of them help her instead get Optimus instead by having them be live bait for him, which is it's so funny to see that all of them are just trying to come up with their own ways to take down Optimus. And you'd be forgiven if this was the sort of the main plot of the episode. I mean, it is basically the main plot of the episode, that each of the Decepticons are trying to compete with one another to figure out who's going to be able to take down Optimus. But it also ties in very well to the side story in this episode, which drives along the main plot of the whole season, which is something that the Visitor with the last episode didn't really do, and I'm about to get to that right now. So eventually, I keep wanting to call her Lugnut, but eventually Clobber and Lockdown are on their own outside of the Nemesis, just still torn over what they're gonna do, because if Clobber and Lockdown go with Shadow Striker's plan, Shockwave and Soundwave are gonna kill them. If they go with Shockwave and Soundwave's plans, then Shadow Striker's gonna kill them. So they're both kind of stuck with what to do, when all of a sudden a ground bridge opens up in front of them, and out comes Hot Rod, who we last saw disappear chasing Cheetor at the end of last episode with the Visitor. So Hot Rod is just as confused as the two Decepticons are as to why Hot Rod's there, and after he tries to ask them if they've seen Cheetor, they end up just attacking him, and we get this really cool like showcase of Lockdown's powers a bit here, especially with his hook arm, where he sort of uses it as a grappling hook to sort of tether himself to Hot Rod's rear bumper as he tries to drive away from them, and then pulls him back, like sort of electrocutes him. And now, again, I'm not sure if animated Lockdown ever does this, so if he did, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I remember someone back in one of my Season 1 reviews said that animated Starscream was able to actually do like a high-pitched sonic scream, after I said that I thought Cyberverse Starscream was the only kinds of Starscream that could actually do that kind of attack. But to see that Lockdown has this grappling hook thing with his literal hook hands is pretty cool. So after Lockdown captures Hot Rod, Clobber handcuffs him, and they decide that this is how they're going to get out of betraying Shadow Striker, Soundwave, and Shockwave by bringing Hot Rod to Megatron as sort of a hostage, and hopefully that will get him in their good graces. And for the most part, it actually works pretty well. They both bring Hot Rod to Megatron, where he decides to reward Clobber and Lockdown, even though when he calls Optimus to basically negotiate a deal where he gives over Hot Rod in exchange for Optimus surrendering himself to Megatron, he sort of just, he still calls them like his most idiotic soldiers, which I find hilarious. And then, as all the other Decepticons are gathered around to just sort of hear out Optimus, Hot Rod's still trying to gather information as he's being taken to Megatron as to where Cheetor could potentially be if he's somewhere on the ship, but when he's unable to get information, he actually just manages to activate like the afterburners on his wrists and just melts down the stasis cuffs so for him to escape. I think it's Shadow Striker chases after Hot Rod, and then throughout the Nemesis, and we get this cool chasing, which is kind of very reminiscent of Wheeljack and Bumblebee chasing down Hot Rod, Windblade, and Grimlock in the last episode. But there's a lot more stakes here, because instead of just stopping Grimlock from just wrecking the Ark, now we've got Shadow Striker chasing down Hot Rod to stop him from escaping. And as they're escaping, we see like Hot Rod's nearly getting caught by Shadow Striker as she chases him throughout the whole Nemesis, but manages to luckily get away by an accident caused by Clobber and Lockdown, where Lockdown for some reason decides to go ahead and throw the sabotaging tool that Shockwave gave him at Hot Rod, which does absolutely nothing but just bounces off his hood. But then Clobber tries to throw all the explosives Soundwave gave her at Hot Rod, but he just dodges them and instead blows a hole in the side of the Nemesis that Hot Rod uses to escape. And after that, Megatron gets on the Nemesis's cannons trying to shoot down Hot Rod, but as the cameras scan him, it manages to pass by Cheetor, who's hiding amidst like the wreckage of, I think, like the harbor that the Nemesis is parked under, or parked in, and Megatron stops chasing Hot Rod just to focus on Cheetor, but before he can have them fire on Cheetor or capture him, Cheetor escapes through another ground bridge, which piques Megatron's interest, and so that probably, now that we know that Megatron is aware of Cheetor's existence, I think later episodes are definitely going to involve Cheetor more as sort of basically a race between whether the Autobots or Decepticons get to him first. After that, the episode ends with Hot Rod contacting Optimus as he escapes, probably requesting like a team to come pick him up or something. Now we're gonna get on to the con of this episode, and it's a big one involving Slipstream's story this episode. Now, while the main story of all Decepticons competing for one another to see who can take down Optimus over the others and become Megatron's new second in command, and how that ties into the overall plot of season with Hot Rod and Cheetor, that fits really well, but the whole plot of Slipstream just trying to make all the other Seekers fall in line just feels totally pointless in my opinion. So it's, as I mentioned before, it starts with Megatron holding Slipstream after he tells everyone what they're going to do. He tells Slipstream to get her Seekers in line, and she runs off to the hangar to go do that, but only finds Thundercracker there, and when she asks him where all the other Seekers are, he just has no idea, and it's weird because, and then later on in that episode, we pick up Slipstream's plot later, when she sees, when she calls Thundercracker again asking where all the Seekers are, and she hears Thundercracker talking with someone, and then we don't know what though, and then afterwards he just gets like pushed back by someone, and then the transmission ends. And I thought this was something we were gonna like learn by the end of this episode, but we don't. It's literally the last time we see Slipstream after that is she goes to talk to Bludgeon, asking him where Thundercracker and the other Seekers are, but we just see her him not answer her at all, just focus more so on training with a bunch of Optimus, like the training dummies that he's made. And it feels like they're really setting up Bludgeon now to be some sort of big and like serious threat later on, either this season, maybe even season 3 or 4. That's how it feels like to me, in my opinion, at least, considering how little interactions Bludgeon actually has in this episode, especially given how he's the only one who actually comes close to doing anything to Hot Rod when he escapes from Megatron towards the end of this episode. The last time we literally see Slipstream is at the end of this episode during Hot Rod's escape, where she finally finds Thundercracker, this time with Acid Storm, carrying some sort of golden projected ball for whatever reason, and she can't get an answer out of him or either of them as to why they're carrying this ball, when all of a sudden Hot Rod comes in and just knocks them all down. That's the last bit we see of Slipstream, and it just doesn't answer anything of her story at all. Like, why were Thundercracker being so closed off to Slipstream as to what was going on? What was the ball he was carrying with Acid Storm? Is this something that's going to be explained later on in the season, or is this just some weird game that he and Acid Storm were going to play and just, I don't know it? Because if that's the case, that was, honestly, in my opinion, very poorly conveyed, and I think the episode could have done better if Slipstream was just, like, another factor in taking down because we had Shadow Striker doing her plan, we had Soundwave and Shockwave doing their own plans, even Clobber and Lockdown get their own plan at some point towards the end. So why couldn't Slipstream have her own plan? Why does she have to go on this little side quest where she's gone to try to keep all the Seekers in line when she doesn't really do anything this episode? It doesn't really amount to anything. So that just, her whole story this episode just felt pointless in my opinion. And so that was my review of Transformers Cyberverse Power of the Spark Season 2 Episode 4.
Bring me the spark of Optimus Prime!
Alright, that's the last time he's gonna interrupt this, I swear to God. If I had to rate this episode, I would definitely give it probably an 8.75 or a 9 out of 10. I really like the improvement over Visitor basically being a slice of life episode for the Decepticons. I love the intro with Megatron live streaming Starscream's funeral / memorial service, and the whole chase with Hot Rod against all the other Decepticons at the end was really cool too, and how it ties into the main plot with Cheetor. I think Lockdown and Clobber are interesting characters, if not Lockdown feels a little bit weird. Bludgeon seems like he'll be cool later on down the season, but Slipstream's plot just being totally useless and taking up like a good quarter of this episode's runtime just feels really, made that whole 2.5 minutes we spent on her feel pointless in my opinion, and I think that time could have been better allocated to just Slipstream coming up with her own plan to take down Optimus with maybe Thundercracker and the other Seekers. I think that would have been better use of that time in my opinion. So that's going to be it for this episode. I'll be back soon with Episode 5, Trials. If you like this review, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Take it away, Bumblebee.
Bumblebee out.
And I might know what